Hi everyone, how y'all doing? I'm doing fine. I just now want to update you on a trip I took over the new year. Took a while for me to do this video because shortly after the new year, two things happened. I came down with COVID, which kind of sucked, although, I was only sick for about a day and a half. So, thumbs up for vaccination and boosters. I always keep myself up to date. I thought it was a cold, literally. Oh, okay, it was just a kind of a bit of a weird cold. But I decided to test just before I went back to work. I was planning to go to work the next day, and then I tested positive, went to the clinic, and sure enough, tested positive, so then I had to stay at home, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing was the AFC Asia Cup, which was being held in Qatar, so there was tons of football games. I went to a few of them, but mostly I was watching it on TV at a friend's place, and to the surprise of probably everyone, Qatar won. That means they've won back to back. I was pretty shocked by that because watching them during the group stages, they did not look very impressive and were just kind of squeaking by on a lot of their games. And I figured, okay, once they get to the elimination round, they're going to hit a really solid team and that'll be the end of it. But there you go. When it came time, they started to peak and they won every game and went on to win. All right, so congrats to Qatar. Glad that they kind of woke up when they needed to be able to win the tournament. So that's why this video was delayed, because January was just kind of caught up with just all that sort of thing. So getting back to my New Year's vacation, which was to South Africa. I went with friends to South Africa for a week. We started in the city of Port Elizabeth. It's been recently renamed. I struggled to pronounce it. And from there, we took what they call the garden path, the garden route, all the way to Cape Town. So Port Elizabeth, we only stayed basically one evening in. We were basically leaving the next day. So didn't really wander around, didn't get a chance to see what was going on. It was very windy. There was a storm that had been coming in. And the only thing that kind of struck me about it was, and this is sort of true for South Africa, was concerns around security. South Africa is not the safest place. I believe it is better than it was, but there is always in the background this concern about safety and security. In Port Elizabeth, at the car rental place, they had signs up going, hey, if you're visiting this elephant park, only take this road, don't take these roads, because, of the danger that something's going to happen. Looking at buildings, you see lots of walls, electric fencing. Everyone's got signs about what security company, is in charge of this place. People we spoke to would always tell us, oh, be careful going here, or be careful with this, or be careful with that. So my only impression that I got of Port Elizabeth, because we were just there for the evening and then had to leave, was you're looking out and you're seeing lots of buildings with electric fencing and stuff all over the place, which was a bit like, okay, I guess Port Elizabeth isn't that safe. Now, I'd spoken to South Africans who told me once you get outside Port Elizabeth, all the towns between there and Cape Town are all fairly small, and so they don't have sort of the crime problems that the larger cities have, especially the large cities like Johannesburg or Pretoria or Cape Town. I did get warnings about once you get close to Cape Town, you really do have to be careful. Just stick to the highway. Don't go off the highway to like sightsee or anything like that till you get to the hotel, and then from there you figure out the good neighborhoods to be in. But I did know that South Africa was quite dangerous in terms of crime, and that you did have to be careful. Thankfully, some of the guys I was mostly with Qataris, also knew this and had actually hired 2 security people to be with us during the trip. So now nothing generally happened to us. everything was pretty good. One guy did get his credit card skimmed, and so thankfully the bank spotted that right away before anything bad happened. Some weird charge got on it. They immediately contacted him, and so he had to block his card. But other than that, it was fine. Now, that said, to what extent did the security guards help prevent the problems? They were South African. They were both black. They may have, just by their presence, kept things, relatively cool for us. I don't know. But hey, I appreciated having, some security there. Nothing wrong with that. So once we left Port Elizabeth, the drive was very nice. You'd head down to towns on the shore. There's beautiful mountains. The scenery changes a lot. It was quite surprising how, you'd kind of think it would be just sort of all kind of the same, but no, as you went along, the landscape, the topography, the types of plants, it changed dramatically going along this thing. So from Port Elizabeth, we briefly went to a beach town called St. Francis Bay, wandered around there a bit, had a lovely lunch, lovely town, seemed quite safe. And then from there, continued along to a city called, okay, let's see if I get this right, Knysna. I had never heard of this town, but it is actually a touristy town in South Africa. It has a beautiful bay and has a lot of development along the shoreline. We had stayed at a golf resort / hotel. And I mean, it was gorgeous. It was on top of a hill, gorgeous views. Your hotel room was like basically a large 2-bedroom apartment. Like it didn't look like a hotel room at all. It looked like an apartment. The golf course is apparently championship level, has, tournaments and things, and just the facilities itself were really nice. I was really surprised because I'm like, okay, some small town in South Africa I've never heard of. Wasn't really expecting like 5-star luxury resort like this, but yeah, there we are. Beautiful. And then we would spend time down at the shore that was well developed. They had all sorts of restaurants and shops built along it, catering to the tourist industry. And we did spend a day on a catamaran. We had rented catamarans, I'll say two, because there was 15 of us. So we had to rent 2 catamarans. And you toured along the bay, and then we went through a narrow strait to the ocean. Now, as soon as we got to the ocean, 2 things happened. It got very foggy, like immediately, like within hundreds of meters of heading out. So suddenly it was just gray. You couldn't see anything. You couldn't see the shore. It was a bit weird. And of course, it got a bit wavier. Now, the sea was actually relatively calm, but yet, the difference, like you were really kind of bouncing a bit, but yet you're looking at the sea, it was pretty calm. We did see a couple animals. I remember seeing a seal swimming, just sort of off, went a seal. Maybe it was a sea lion, don't know for sure. You're seeing fish. Some of the guys think they saw either a shark or a whale in the distance. I missed that. And then because it was so foggy and stuff, we just quickly turned around, went back into the bay, which was much calmer, and you could actually see, see the shoreline, cliffs, all sorts of beautiful birds nesting in the cliffs and things like that. It was really nice. There was also a motorcycle museum that we stumbled across there, which had hundreds of old motorcycles as far as I can tell. Nice to visit. Chatted with the people there. They were all really nice. Again, pointing out things and telling us to be careful if we're doing certain stuff. But that was really cool. And also then that evening, we went back and our hotel rooms, or basically our apartments at the resort, all even had little mini barbecues. And so one of them had a nice barbecue area that we used to cook up all sorts of steaks and things, including ostrich. There are a lot of ostrich farms in South Africa. Ostrich is, I guess, a reasonably common meat. And at the supermarket, they had ostrich meat. So we decided to buy some and cook it up. Ostrich is not what you would expect. Because it's a very large bird, you would assume it would be like, chicken. But it's not. It's a red meat. It looks very red, and it does not taste like chicken. It definitely tastes more in the red meat beef kind of zone as opposed to chicken, which again just kind of threw me just because it's a bird. So there you go. All birds don't taste or look like chicken or duck. So that was kind of cool. Then when it was time to leave Nesna, we headed over the mountains to, let me see if I get this right, Oudtshoorn. Very Dutch names. Don't forget, South Africa was originally colonized by Dutch German settlers. Then the Brits arrived. Then there was a war. Brits won. So while South Africa is a British Commonwealth country, there is a significant Dutch history, and a lot of people in South Africa speak what is called Afrikaans, which is, I think, akin to Dutch. Maybe it's more German. I don't know the history of it, but that culture is still there. So tons of towns, tons of cities all have these very Dutch names, like Oudtshoorn. Now, going over the mountains, and being from British Columbia, I'm used to huge mountains, and these mountains weren't quite to that level. But yet, when you got to the other side, we had left the cloudy, rainy, wettish, lush area of Nisma, and suddenly we were in a desert more akin to what I would expect sort of in like the southwestern US. Scrubby bushes, very dry looking, not a lot of trees. It was sunny. Like literally, as we went over the mountains, it was rainy and foggy and stuff, and then gone. That was all gone. It was all sunny now, and we were like, okay. These kinds of changes going over mountain ranges happen all over the world, but I wasn't expecting it to be that quick, and especially given the size of the mountains. But it looks like the clouds come off the ocean and just hit those mountains, and that's that. And Oudtshoorn is actually in more of a semi-desert area. It is also well known for the ostrich farms. And all over the place were ostrich farms. Tons of ostriches everywhere. Actually, it was really cool. Just drive up to the fence and, go see the ostriches. Having worked at a game farm a long time ago in Canada that had ostriches, I knew that hand feeding ostriches is a very bad idea and that you shouldn't do it because they are huge and they will hurt when they start pecking at you and if they grab your finger and all of that. Most of the injuries at this game farm were from people trying to hand feed ostriches, despite all the signs trying to tell them don't do that because you'll get hurt. So I just had to warn all my friends, look, you get fairly close to these things, don't go over the fence to go in there, and do not hand feed these things. You will get hurt. Okay, everyone listened, so it was just nice to see the ostriches from a safe distance to take photos and things. And then one of the things that we did was two guys went to the supermarket and bought ostrich eggs because apparently the supermarket sold ostrich eggs. And the resort we were staying at were kind enough to cook them for us. They said, if you buy ostrich eggs, we'll cook you up ostrich egg omelets. These eggs are huge. Now, big surprise, ostriches are the largest bird and they lay huge eggs. The hotel says that a ostrich egg will typically be around 2 dozen chicken eggs worth of egg. So we bought 2. They cooked them up into omelets for us. And again, I kind of figured they'd be very rich and kind of heavy. And it wasn't. It was actually sort of a very light, eggy taste. In fact, the omelet was almost kind of like partway between an omelet and almost like a pancake. Like you did not have a heavy egg taste to them, which was odd. Again, I don't know, ostriches. Ostriches are odd birds. Strange. Anyway, cool to try ostrich omelets. It was tasty. It was nice. Drove around a bit, just like these guys I was with love to just kind of go off-road, just see the sights, see old buildings, see farms and things. We came across what looked like an abandoned village, maybe about 7 or 8 buildings. Even the dirt road we were on was starting to get overgrown. The guys are wondering why the homes were abandoned. They definitely were not very big homes. They looked like, almost just sort of slightly large shacks, but it was all abandoned and falling to ruin. I kind of wonder if it had to do with the HIV epidemic. Unfortunately, South Africa and other countries in Southern Africa have the highest rates of HIV, and at its peak, I think 40% of adults had it. So there was a lot of adults dying from HIV, which then was leading to further migration to the cities. Not sure if that's what happened in this village, but it did seem strange that like the 7 or 8 buildings that we saw were all abandoned and had clearly been abandoned for a while. Finally, from Oudtshoorn, we drove, it took a few hours, all the way to Cape Town. We would have liked to have stayed somewhere else in between, maybe on the shore or whatever, but these were all small towns, and there was 15 of us plus the 2 security guys, so 17 of us over the new year. Made it a bit difficult to find accommodation. There weren't many hotels and stuff that just had enough rooms for that many people. So unfortunately, we couldn't stay any more days seeing the sights and staying on the shore. We had to go straight to Cape Town. Again, once we got close to Cape Town, I'd warned everyone, our security guys warned everyone, stay on the road. I think it's a highway called the N2. Stay on that. It goes through the township areas. Do not stop for any reason. They were pretty adamant about this. And anything I'd read was like, don't stop. Do not pull over to the side of the road. Just go straight to your hotel. So we did. The hotel was in the central business district. Not the nicest, but not the nicest neighborhood. The hotel was fine. Neighborhood itself, kind of, large downtown city vibe. I'd almost kind of given an equivalent to kind of like Granville Street in Vancouver. Fine, but not, luxurious neighborhood. And so we spent a couple of days in Cape Town, doing the standard Cape Town thing. Some of the guys went hiking up Table Mountain. I went down to, I think it's called Cape Point National Park, the most southern point, about an hour's drive south of Cape Town. Went there, see the shore, climb the rocks, see the lighthouse, and so forth. It was very crowded because it was the holiday. Getting back to the hotel turned out to be a problem because there was a massive parade that day. And so the hotel had warned us that it's like, there's going to be this massive parade. They gave us wristbands because without the wristbands, the hotel security wouldn't be letting us into the hotel just because the parade goes past the hotel. So there's just going to be tons of people there. So they were making sure only guests were coming into the hotel. Trying to get back to the hotel was a problem because the traffic and so forth was nuts. We eventually just managed to see a parking space, pulled over there. It was a few blocks from the hotel, walked the rest of the way. The hotel then did tell us that after the parade's over, to go get the car, do not leave it outside overnight in that neighborhood, because otherwise you'll get broken into. Again, this whole got to be careful and security thing coming up. Well, the parade was sort of like Carnival, just huge amounts of people in what looked like, bands and dancing and so forth, one after the other. Here's some examples. went on till midnight. Midnight. So some of the guys were trying to sleep, and it was like, no, we're all texting each other. And I'm like, hotel said this ends at midnight, so good luck. This ain't happening. Because you have bands with brass instruments and drums that are literally outside the window. Bam, 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 bam. And it lasted till midnight. So everyone was like, okay, fine. I'm like, just watch the parade. I was watching it from the hotel. It was actually really cool. Anyway, next day, other people, we went to, like, there was a very nice district on the shore that they had built up with all sorts of shops and malls and things like that. We went there. There was a very nice beach area that I went with a couple of guys because they signed up for surfing lessons. So I went with them, not because I was surfing. The water is dang cold in South Africa. The currents are from the Antarctic. So even though it was the middle of summer, don't forget, they're in the southern hemisphere. So North American winter is their summer. And it was like 30 degrees outside. That water was, I think, like 11 or 12. So they wore wetsuits and stuff. No way I was going swimming in that, freezing. And, just went so I could see the area. It was a nice area with, again, shops and things, and could take photos of them surfing and having their lesson. So that was all nice. And then otherwise we were going to nice restaurants and just trying cuisine and things like that. So that was the trip. We flew back to Doha straight from Cape Town. Didn't really have any issues. Loved the place. I mean, the scenery is gorgeous. It was neat seeing all these different things, seeing these different animals, trying this different cuisine. Still a bit disconcerting how the security thing was always on everyone's mind. You could always see signs of this, whether, through electric fencing being everywhere, or security guards always all over the place, or everyone telling you to be careful and do this and don't do that and be careful about this. It was always on people's minds, which I think threw the guys off a little. Being from Qatar, which is one of the safest countries in the world, crime is so minimal here. To go to a country where violent crime is a real risk. In fact, shortly after we left, I read an article about a British Airways crew member in Johannesburg who, I think he just decided to go out for a walk or decided to go to a nearby supermarket and was immediately kidnapped and, beat up, tortured to get his bank card details and all that, and was held captive until they, drained all the money out of his accounts, and then they let him go. And this apparently is not uncommon in major cities in South Africa, so you do have to be careful. That's all I had to say. Had a wonderful time, and I will talk to you all later.